Shabbat Shalom. This week's portion, Torah portion, is Nitzavim VaYelech. It is drawing towards the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and I would like to focus this week on a short cluster of verses at the very end of chapter 30. See, I have set before you this day life and good, death and evil, and that I command you this day to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you shall live and multiply, and the Lord your God shall bless you in the land into which you go to possess it. But if your heart turn away, so that you will not hear, but shall be drawn away and worship other gods and serve them, I announce to you this day that you shall surely perish, and that you shall not prolong your days upon this land. It continues on along that vein, and then it concludes as follows. For he is your life, God, talking about God, for he is your life in the length of your days, that you may dwell in the land which the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them. What we have here is a very clear setting forth of a series of choices. God is basically saying, I'm giving you a choice. You can choose life and good. You can choose death and evil. You can choose, in verse 19, you can choose life or death. You can choose the blessing or the curse. Now, this chapter is part, or it comes towards the end of this entire series of chapters that has to do with the covenant, the blessings and the curses, and the covenant that the children of Israel enter in with God. But putting it here in such a stark background, the stark choice of life or death, how many of us, when we approach a particular decision that we have to make in life, how many of us view that choice as a life or death choice? Clearly, if we're about to go into the hospital for a serious operation, if we have to make a decision as to whether to embark on what can be a dangerous adventure, then it is very clear to us that what we are choosing is between life and death. However, how many of us, when we act perhaps in a way that is less than ethical in a business practice, when we insult somebody, when we neglect to obey a particular commandment, how many of us review or perceive that decision as a life or death decision? And what God is basically saying here is that every decision we make should be about, are we trying to obey God or not? If we make a decision that is taking us away from God, then in essence, we have chosen death. And if we make a decision that is bringing us closer to God, we are choosing life. Therefore, these verses are not just talking about commandments which we know are capital crimes. For example, there's no question. If you kill somebody, that's a capital crime, and you will be killed. So that when you have chosen to commit that crime, you know very well that that is a life or death choice. But here, what the scripture is referring to is the totality of our lifestyles. Have we chosen a life that is consistent with the Bible and with God's commandments, in which case we have chosen life? Or have we chosen a life that moves away from God? And here, the verse tells us about bowing down to foreign, to idols, to pagan gods. But I don't think it is just about bowing down to pagan gods. Most people today are not attracted to bowing down to statues. In the modern world, this is not something that is attractive to us, or some kind of a danger, of a negative influence. On the other hand, we are often attracted to take the secular direction. We are living in a world, in a very secular world, where a person's ability to stay the course that the Bible has set for us, following God's commandments and following the ethical, religious way of life that has been set down for us here in the Bible, The temptations to leave that and to become like everyone else are just as great today as they were back in biblical times. Maybe it's easier for us, and maybe it's something that would help us as we educate our children as well, to see the broader picture, that the life that God has chosen for us is a life that is life. If we reject that path, what we are essentially doing is choosing death. And of course we don't want to do that. Shabbat Shalom from Samaria.